Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. You might recognise the star of today's, well, I'm going to call it Tier 10 because they are mostly Tier 10, but there are some Tier 9s in it. Ranked domination battle here on the Loop map. This, in the Tier 10 Soviet light cruiser, the Smolensk, is Sir Alvindor. We featured him a while back. It was also in a ranked battle, and he was in the Incomparable, and he did 303,000 damage in a ranked battle, which was pretty impressive. Except for Sir Alvindor, well, it just wasn't enough. Not so much the damage done. The damage done was good. He was entirely happy with the 303,000 damage, and obviously the accompanying high caliber award. But it was the fact that that 303,000 damage in that particular ranked battle only accounted for 70% of the entire hit point pool of the entire enemy team. He was just upset that he didn't make it to 75%. Not that you get anything special for doing 75% of the entire enemy team's hit point pool in damage. High caliber just requires that you damage 4 or more enemy ships, and the overall damage done must be 30% of the entire enemy team's hit point pool. He just likes the sound of 75%. So bearing that in mind, he's back. And this time he's in the Smolensk. This is like the polar opposite of the Incomparable, the last ship that he was featured in. The Incomparable, of course, being an absolutely huge, technically battle cruiser, but it's in the battleship line, armed with a small number of hoofing great big 500mm guns. The Smolensk, of course, as a light cruiser, pretty much the exact opposite, armed with 16 130mm guns. These are basically the same guns that were mounted on the IS-7 tank, fact fans. Well, not exactly the same, they were modified to fit on a tank, but the IS-7's 130mm gun, which was known as the S-70, was basically a conversion of these naval 130mm guns. And they have, I remember there's 16 of them, a blisteringly fast 4.5 second reload, which is the reason why the Smolensk, and he has just been spotted, which means enemy destroyer. Oh, appropriately enough, the reason why the Smolensk is extremely unpopular with enemy destroyers. Well, I mean, that's the primary reason why the Smolensk is extremely unpopular with enemy destroyers. These 16 rapid-firing 130mm guns, but there are two other reasons. The Smolensk has a smoke screen, and it has the hydroacoustic search consumable. Now, Sir Alvindor is and ahhing at the moment about whether or not he's going to use his hydro... Okay, he's used it. Because he did see the torpedoes from the enemy burrows over there launched in the direction of friendly Daring, but, well, it's a relatively new ship and I don't know how many torpedo launchers it's got either, so he's popped the hydro. And the combination of the smoke screen and the hydro means that, well, I mean, if you're on a destroyer and you get bounced by one of these things, you're not going to outgun it. But the chances are fairly good you're not going to be able to torpedo it either. So, yeah, there's that. The Smolensk is detested by enemy destroyers. Oh, there's the Salem. We're good, we're good. Sir Alvindor is outside of the Salem's radar range. We don't need to worry. The Salem is like the... it's sometimes, and I think unfairly referred to as the bargain basement budget version of the USS Des Moines. And there's some truth to that, and it's mostly down to the Salem's inferior radar, which only has a 9-kilometre range. But the Salem does have other strengths. It has an excellent damage repair party, and it's got the same guns as the Des Moines. We'll come back to the Salem again in a moment. For now, let's finish off the list of who absolutely detests the Smolensk, and that, of course, means battleship players. Although the Conqueror over there is one of the notable exceptions to that rule. The reason why battleship players absolutely hate this thing is, I mean, look at how narrow that ship is. And it's a light cruiser, so it's also extremely badly armoured. What this means... Oh, there's the burrows again. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. He's slowing and smoking, but I think he's actually inside the Daring's hydro range or something. Oh, no, he's good, he's good. Well, is he? Actually, I don't think he is. I think this might be the first blood. That was the first blood. Oh. Yeah, there's nothing a light cruiser captain loves more than being able to just hose high explosive down on a whole bunch of battleships that are ignoring him. Oh yeah, I was talking about why battleships detest this thing. Generally speaking, if you're in a light cruiser, you do not want to be given broadside to a battleship of any description, because you're just begging to be paddled to within an inch of your life by large caliber incoming armor-piercing citadels. Ooh, the Conqueror's shooting at him now. It's potentially really, really bad. Might be time to pop up. Yeah, there goes the smoke. Yeah, this thing doesn't want to get shot at by a Conqueror, for reasons which I will continue to explain. So, generally, light cruisers do not want to get caught in open water giving broadsides to battleships, because they'll just explode the second the battleship so much as looks at them. But that doesn't tend to happen with the Smolensk. Now, Sir Alvandor is using the smoke because he can, because it doesn't pay to get shot at if you can possibly avoid it. But if you can't avoid it, the Smolensk tends to do way better than most other cruisers while getting targeted by battleships launching large caliber armor piercing at you, because if you were to fire a 15, 16, and hell even an 18 or a 20-inch armor piercing shell at the Smolensk, it is so narrow and so badly armoured that what is going to happen is those armour piercing shells are just going to over-penetrate, go right through, out the other side, and only do 10% damage. In a situation where any other light cruiser would tend to get citadeled to death. So yeah, battleship players hate this thing. The reason I say that the Conqueror is an exception to this rule, and not the only exception, of course, I mean it's just the only exception in this battle, is because Conqueror players are kind of notorious for just spamming high explosive at everything. 16-inch high explosive will mess up a Smolensk. Conqueror 16-inch high explosive will mess up anything, which is why Conqueror players tend to just load high explosive and spam that at everything. So if you're getting shot at by a Conqueror in one of these things, if it hits you, you can be in significant amount of trouble. And of course the final reason why battleship players, like the Iwami over there, absolutely detest the Smolensk is because, well, look at the amount of fires that he set. He's switching to the armour piercing now, of course, but he just set his 14th fire. And most of those were on the Iwami. We all know how much battleship players love being on fire. So, yeah. So, is there anything that is a threat to this cruiser? Oh, hell yeah. I mean, I mentioned the Conqueror as an exception to the battleship rule, but it's not the only one. Battleships that have good secondaries tend to just lock their secondaries onto this thing and forget about it, because the thin armour means that it takes a ton of damage from accurate secondaries, so the Libertad, any of the Pan-American battleships basically, and then of course ships like the Massachusetts and so on and so on. The German battleship, the Mecklenburg, great example as well as excellent secondaries, smaller caliber main battery guns that aren't just going to over-penetrate if they're firing armour-piercing. But the single biggest threat to the Smolensk are other cruisers. Particularly cruisers like the USS Des Moines, that match its rate of fire, but have much, much larger caliber shells that aren't going to over-penetrate. Or its sister ship, the USS Salem over there. I mean, basically any other cruiser. And while the Smolensk is going to do a lot of damage to any other cruiser, if that Salem were to, for example, stop shooting at the Daring and start shooting at Sir Alvandor, bearing in mind that the Salem started this engagement with a third of Sir Alvandor's hit points. Yeah. This is what gives Smolensk players the shits, getting shot at by other cruisers. Or some of the more potent artillery destroyers. Holy shit. He got the Salem. He did kill the Salem. Of course he did. The Salem was on 13,000 hit points, and he had 16 guns shooting at him for about 10 seconds. But in that same 10 seconds, the Salem shaved off 30,000 hit points of Sir Alvandor's. And if that fight had gone on for 3 seconds, oh, that was close. That was the Conqueror. A single 16-inch high explosive shell from the Conqueror would have ended his adventure here as well. Fortunately, the Conqueror missed. But if that fight had gone on for like 3 seconds longer, he might have still also killed the Salem, but the Salem would have gotten him. And he started that fight with 3 times as many hit points as the enemy cruiser. So, yeah. The Smolensk is absolutely hated by a huge section of the player base, and for excellent reasons. Battleships, destroyers, absolutely hate this thing. But if it has a nemesis, it's basically any other cruiser. In particular, artillery cruisers like the Salem, or the Des Moines, or the Kuznets. Honestly, it's a long list. If you're in a cruiser and you get the opportunity to shoot at a Smolensk on the enemy team, do your battleships and destroyers are solid, and shoot at the Smolensk. They will, or they should, be grateful to you for it. Well, Sir Alvendor's team do have they did have a 2-to-1 advantage in ships and cap circles over the enemy team, but they just lost their grosser curve first. But, I mean, they do still have an advantage. Unfortunately, the 2 surviving ships are exactly the kind of ships that you really don't want to be fighting when you're in a Smolensk. An enemy cruiser and a battleship that's a conqueror. And even after expending his heals, Sir Alvendor is up to just a little bit over 6,000 hit points, which is basically one salvo from the Utrecht, or a single hit from the Conqueror. His heal's back off cooldown, so he uses it again, but it's not making that much difference. The paddling that he received from the Salem's 8-inch armor piercing will mostly citadels, so there's a limit to how much the repair point can heal back of that. He does, however, have one remaining charge of the smokescreen. He's probably going to want to use it wisely. See, at the moment he's alright. We've got the island between himself and the Conqueror, who's been spotted by another teammate. So he's able to get some shots off as long as it remains on the other side of the island. Gets the torpedoes away. The Manteuffel has also launched some torpedoes. Yes, Germany, sorry. I have actually learned how to correctly pronounce the name of that thing since the last time I saw it in battle. But I don't think the Conqueror's going to fall for the Manteuffel torpedo. Meanwhile, the Daring is doing the smart thing because they could still lose this fight. And he is flipping the cap at Alpha. So good job to the Daring. Alright, he's managed to recover enough health that it's probably going to take more than a single 16-inch high explosive shell from the Conqueror to end him. But he's still probably going to want to use the smokes. There it is, yes. Just in case. Now here's the thing. The Conqueror can't see him. But that doesn't mean it can't hurt him. Like I said, Conquerors are one of the exceptions to the rule. If that thing reloads, smoke screen or no, he's probably going to be, there, he managed to land. I mean, the Conqueror was on fire, he got 2 torpedo hits, it caused a double flood. And cool ships don't look at explosions, so there's kill number 4. Now it's just the Utrecht. But he is just a little bit outnumbered. He's got a Manteuffel chasing after him. It's going to probably take a little bit more than his attack planes. And of course, he's got an unspotted Smolensk with nobody shooting at it, farming him for yet more high explosive damage. That's his 24th fire set, by the way. Yeah. I know. I really don't think much of the Utrecht's chances. He has my sympathy. There it is. 1,000 points. Is the Utrecht going to survive? It might. It's not going to make any difference. It does. Oh well. Kraken Unleashed denied. However, no shortage of awards. First Blood, High Caliber, Arsonist, and Witherer. 24 fires set in this thing from nearly 700 gun hits. Nearly 3,000 base experience. Well done there also to the Manteuffel and of course the Daring. But have a look at the detailed report. That's 121,000 damage to the Conqueror. That's 87,000 damage to the Owami, 34,000 to the Salem, 12,000 to the Burrows, and just to round things off, 30,000 to the Utrecht. It's not the same amount of damage that he did in the previous replay where he was featured in the Incomparable under more or less the same circumstances, although it's not that much less. And almost 100,000 damage of that was from fires and floods alone. Let's face it, mostly fires, with 24 fires set. But while he was disappointed in the Incomparable replay that he didn't manage to do 70% of the entire enemy team's hit points in damage, and even though he did less damage in this battle, that was actually 85%, technically 84.9, but we'll round it up and call it 85% of the entire enemy team's hit points inflicted by Sir Alvendor in this one light cruiser during this tier 10 ranked battle. And that's pretty impressive. Hope you all enjoyed it. Battleship and Destroyer players, if you want to rage at the Smolensk, you know where the comment section is. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.